Shabbat Shalom. We're on page 11, Elech Hamda Libi.
Elech Hamda Libi, Kusana ve'al natitalem. Elech Hamda Libi, Kusana ve'al natitalem. Elech Hamda Libi, Kusana ve'al natitalem.
Turning to page 2, we welcome in Shabbat with lighting candles. We invite Christy Karsh and Julie Harris to the bima to light candles. Page 2. Amen. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Page 24, we welcome Shabbat in with light. We set apart the day as a holy day, and we welcome in the Shabbat angels with Shalom Aleichem. Page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Sharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Sharet, Malachei Elyon,
Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Sharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ba'achem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ba'achem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ba'achem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeichem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeichem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeichem l'shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
continuing Kabbalat Shabbat on page 13. Yismechu Hashamayim, it's the first part of the second paragraph.
ישמחו השמיים
ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו. ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו.
ימממי ממי ימממי ממי ימממי מממי מממי ממי ימממי ממי ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו. ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו. ימממי ממי ימממי
And from Psalm 98, at the top of page 16, Zamru Ladonai B'chinor. We've arrived at the Chadodi on page 20. This is the prayer where we welcome in the Shabbat presence. So we've welcomed Shabbat in with light, welcome the Shabbat angels, we welcome in the Shabbat presence. And then at the end, we'll be standing when we get to paragraph 9. And so it's been our tradition to, while we're standing, to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. I'm just wondering if maybe you want to ask someone one question or tell them one thing. So more than Shabbat Shalom, just let's make a little connection with someone tonight and see how that works out. When you're standing, welcoming in Shabbat, maybe that'd be a nice way to enter in this time. Page 20.
אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, שימו לתפארת ולתהילה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, ואורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, לכבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי הלאה, בואי הלאה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה. איי 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 לך דודי, איי 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 לקראת כלה, איי 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 פני שבת, איי 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 נקבלה.
Take a moment to make a connection with someone that you haven't maybe met before. Glissando. continue with our service with the Psalm for Shabbat on page 22. I love that you're talking to each other. I'm hoping that on Zoom that can happen too. So we're at the Psalm for Shabbat, page 22, Psalm 92. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat.
Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. Tov lehodot Adonai ulezamer leshimcha elyon lehagid baboker chastecha ve'emunatcha balelot ale asor va'ale navel ale higayon vechinur lehagid baboker chastecha ve'emunatcha balelot ale asor va'ale navel ale higayon vechinur Tzadik katamar yibrach ke'erez b'Lebanon yizkeh shetuli bebeit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvon beseva deshenim vera'ananim yiyu lehagid ki asher Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo.
Returning ahead to page 145. And there we make the transition to the rest of the service, the evening service with Chetzi Kaddish. Page 145.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
ועל מה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי כל יום אחד ובחיי זכור בישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמירה במברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמיר קודשה פרחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירון בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
Please rise and body your spirit as you're able for Baruch.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ad.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim B'chokhmah Potech Sha'arim Uvitvuna Mishana Itim Umachalif Et Hazmanim ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גואל מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. החי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים.
אהבת עולם את ישראל, עמך בטוב, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו לאורך ימינו, ובהם יגע יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
You may be seated, and we continue on page 150.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך וקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וקרבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound. Before our eyes there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul. When will redemption come? When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves. Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High. We learned God's presence through teams, time, and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Thank you. echad Adonai et Yaakov, ugehalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael.
This is a poetic version of Hashkivenu.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
So in the Hashkivenu, we ask God to spread over us a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace, shelter of protection. We do it at night because that's when it's scary sometimes, or when we feel vulnerable, or when we feel afraid or alone. So we ask God to watch over us as we go out and as we come in, and to spread over us the shelter of peace. So we ask God to spread the shelter of peace over all of us, and to hold a special place for healing. We send our healing prayers and thoughts to those in our community, our family, our friends who are in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit. We all want to be protected in times of fear, in times of illness. And so tonight we hold in our hearts especially Ira Altshuler, Ann Barber, Howard Bregman, Daniel Chen, Fern Diamond, Phyllis Didion, Anna Gitlitz, Ann Fay, Judy Forrest, Ken Franklin, Piers Haggard, Gary Henry, David Mordechai HaKohen, Naum Kaplan, Sylvia Kasparowski, Lee Kramer, Albert Lepre, Susan Lother, Hinda Sarah Batchana Pearl, Brian Martino, Nancy McGahan, Jonathan Miller, Edward Mims, Joanne Newman, Till Oster, Caleb Piper, Lev Podorovsky, Naftali Ben Riva, Mike Rosen, Rabbi Bert Schumann, Lanny Seed, Adam Schusterman, John Spear, Michael Spate, Jan Stoller, Jackie Student, Carolyn Turner, Hazan Sheva Yehuda Ben Batya, Colleen Wolfson, and Martin Zimmerman. Other names for Misha Berach tonight? Berach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and heal all those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say,
from life's storm.
We continue with Vashamru on page 154, an acknowledgement of our covenant between the people of Israel and God to keep Shabbat. Page 154 at the top of the page.
לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Please rise and bow to your spirit for the tefillah, beginning on page 155.
Adonai, sefatai tifach, uvi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh HaKol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, U'mevii ge'ula libnei bneihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדו מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. On page 160, we read together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Be gracious, Adonai, our God, to your people Israel, and receive our prayers with love. Oh, may our worship always be acceptable to you. Fill us with the knowledge you are near to all who seek you in truth. Let our eyes behold your presence in our midst and in the midst of our people in Zion. Blessed is Adonai, whose presence renews Zion. And at top of page 163, For the good in us which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve our world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise. For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shemcha uchana lahodot. Page 164 at the top of the page is Shalom Rav. I usually say it's a prayer for peace, big and abundant. Rav is big, peace. Tonight I just want to acknowledge our congregation going through a painful transitional time, and it is our prayer that we can sing and pray and talk with one another and listen with one another to bring about peace and wholeness, that we stay peaceful and whole as an entire community. Peace, the word shalom, is related to the word for wholeness, shalem. When our community is whole, when our hearts and our homes are whole, then there can be peace. Shalom Rav, we follow Shalom Rav with our own silent prayer. That beautiful Shalom Rav that Molly just sang just so beautifully. Some of you might remember that was Mimi's Shalom Rav. We sang it tonight because something about Mimi, right? Something about Mimi, if you were lucky enough to know her, just the loving, peaceful presence. Just wanted to bring her into the sanctuary tonight. This past week, in a conversation I was having with a woman about her father's funeral, she said he wore his heart on his sleeve. So I knew that she meant that just by looking at him, it was possible for her, anyway, to know exactly what he was feeling. We use that phrase, to wear a heart on your sleeve, to say that someone is showing their emotion, their intimate emotions, in an honest and open manner. So I've been thinking a lot about this phrase, to wear a heart on one's sleeve. I looked it up to find that it might come from in the Middle Ages, when a sleeve referred not only to the part of this part of a garment, but to a piece of armor that covered and protected the arm for knights who were jousting. So the knights, when they were participating in a joust, would sometimes dedicate their performance to a lady of the court, and then wear something of hers, as maybe a scarf or a ribbon, around their sleeve of armor. And then that piece of clothing would be identified with that particular lady that the knight favored. And so from there was the expression, maybe, to wear your heart on your sleeve. It's used in Othello. And I almost quoted that, but I would probably make a mess of it. So I'll let you read Othello and to wear your heart on your sleeve. Why was I thinking about this? Well, the Torah portion is all about clothing, and this phrase just made me think that sometimes we need visible reminders of the values that we want to practice. Why do we wear kippah if we do? Why do we dress in a certain way? Wearing our hearts on our sleeves is a good way to remind ourselves to be kind, to be loving, and to show compassion to others. So if there's a way that we could figure out maybe to wear our heart on our sleeves, maybe that would remind us to be kind. At the beginning of this week's portion, Tetzaveh, the Torah outlines in great detail the ornate wardrobe that Aaron, the high priest, would wear as he performed his duties in the Mishkan. So we're in the middle of this building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, in the wilderness, all these different pieces that all the different people need to bring. And when that is all complete, as we learned last week, then God will dwell among the people when we build this Mishkan. And the high priest would be doing the sacrifices in the Mishkan. So this Torah portion details that this clothing would be made of the most precious of materials. It would require the highest level of artistry. For example, the choshen, the breastplate, is held up with braided chains of gold and is filled with etched precious stones with names of all the 12 tribes. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. The reasons for the extravagant clothing, it's not really obvious. In fact, Rabbi Yonatan Udren points out that we might imagine a servant of God wearing very modest clothing. Like, why bring so much attention to yourself? It's not about you. It's about the service to God. So why all the flashy clothing? Why all the pomp and circumstance? Who's the clothing for? Who are all these pieces for? We think about it. Surely Aaron knew that he was the high priest. He doesn't need the fancy clothing to remind himself of his job. He knows what his job is. And everyone else knows who he is as well. The text tells us that the clothes are lekavod ul tiferet, for honor and for glory. So that makes me think, for whose honor and whose glory? Is it for Aaron's honor and glory? Is it for God's honor and glory? So I'm going to suggest that the fancy clothes, these beautifully ornamented garments, are intended, at least in part, for the benefit of the Israelites themselves. So think, if you remember the structure, the high priests were the ones who did the sacrifices, the Levites were the ones who helped, and everyone else was an Israelite. And I'm suggesting that this fancy clothes were for the benefit of the Israelites. Because the function of the high priest is to open up a passageway, to make a connection for people, to allow people to make a connection between God and themselves. and then also to make connections between and among themselves. So, for example, the headdress was inscribed with the words, "Holy to the Eternal." The priest couldn't see that because it was on his head, but everyone else could see it. And so it's been suggested that maybe that headdress was a reminder to the people who looked at it, who would say, they would read it, "Holy to the Eternal," and then they would see themselves as holy to the Eternal. It's kind of like looking in a mirror. What do you see there? It says "Holy to the Eternal," and that's the message for them. And if someone is reminded that they are holy to the Eternal, then they might see their neighbor the same way, right? I'm a reflection of God. This person is a reflection of God as well. And I need to show that other person the dignity and compassion that you show to every human being. So as I mentioned before, Aaron also wore a breastplate with the names of the 12 tribes engraved on it. The names reminded Aaron of his covenantal relationship to the people, his job of linking the people with God. About this breastplate with the names on it, the Eitz Chaim commentary says, when Aaron had to make a decision regarding a fellow Israelite, he was to consult not only the rule book, but his heart as well. I love that. The idea is not only the rules, but there's heart. And by wearing the names, like where you wear your heart on your sleeve, right? By wearing the names of the Israelites, it reminds you who you're doing the service for. Rabbi Yael Levy wrote a beautiful piece about these garments, and also she mentions in the piece I'm about to read to you, the Ner Tamid, which is also in this Torah portion, Ner Tamid being, we sometimes refer to it as the eternal light. She translates it as the forever light, which I really love, the forever light. But that's what it is, the Ner Tamid. And as we listen to this poem, might I suggest that we remind ourselves that in this time, in our time, no one is singled out as a priest in the Jewish community. Everyone it's a democratic tradition. In fact, not only are we not singled out as priests, no one is, but we're supposed to regard ourselves as a kingdom of priests, an entire community of priests. So the obligation and privilege of serving one another and in serving the holy, that's on all of us. So I'm going to read you this beautiful piece to close. What do we place upon our hearts to help us serve with dignity, in harmony, and truth? What do we place upon our hearts to help us remember who and what we serve? What do we place upon our hearts when our hearts are broken, weary, anguished, in despair? We place upon our hearts names of those we love, names of those we care for. We place upon our hearts names of those who have loved us, names of those whose challenges, joys, pain, and achievements we carry. We place upon our hearts the gifts of the ancestors and hopes for the children. And we place upon our hearts qualities we yearn to live by, ideals we seek to uphold. We place upon our hearts trust and faith, strength and courage, love and truth. We place upon our hearts the intention to be present, even as the heart is broken open by grief. We place upon our hearts the intention to seek the Ner Tamid, the always and forever light, hidden within the brokenness, shining. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now with Aleinu, page 282. Please rise and bow to your spirit as you're able.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, תורתו, וידעת היום, וידעת היום, והשיבותה אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, אין עוד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ויהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please remain standing if you can. Page 294 is Kaddish. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and all those whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died in the last 30 days, the Shloshim period. Jean Gershon, Annette Glantz, Marcia Gumberg, Larry Irwin, Elliot Kramer, Irving Krasnopoler, Millie Rogo, Patrice Schur, Carol Wallach, and Francis Levin, who will be buried next week. We also think of those whose yahrzeit we observe on this Shabbat: Nancy Angerman, Claire Arnheim, Ann Bales, Charles Berman, Leon Dorfson, Sidney Dubner, Francis Feinberg, Emil Feldman, Norman Frank, Esther Ginsberg, Dr. Harvey Gollin, Mary Louise Gray, Pearl Haber, Rose Krasnopoler, Corinne Kraus, Morton Levitt, Marcia Ann Marcus, David Robert May, Erna Metzger, Dr. Harry I. Miller, Samuel Parker, Morris Reamer, Ida Mae Rich, Benjamin Rosen, Shirley H. Rosen, Louis Solomon, Dr. Bernard Shepman, Geraldine Shulan, Francis Sorak, Manny H. Smith, Estelle Weinstein, Susan Wolf, Rose Ziff, Stanley E. Ziff. Are there any other names for Kaddish tonight? Go ahead. Zichronam Livracha, may all their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach irtei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol bet Yisrael. B'galau v'yizman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach la'olam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrobam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei dekudashah b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran bi'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
In just a moment, we'll conclude our service the way we opened it with Eila Chamda Libi. It's on page 338. We'd like to acknowledge Luke. If you turn around and you can see Luke up there in the balcony, say thank you to Luke for making, Luke, everyone's waving at you. Luke makes it possible for us to hear, for it to sound really good in this room, as well as for what we do in this room to be sent out into the world. And we're very grateful to Luke, as well as to Don and to Molly for creating this beautiful worship that we create together. Thank you all for being part of our service tonight, and Kristen and Julie, thanks for being so agreeable and lighting Shabbat candles. It's been nice to be with all of you tonight. We'll, as I said, page 338, Eila Chamda Libi, and then we'll close the service with Kiddush and Motzi.
Eila Chamda Libi.
Is on page 5. After services, please come get a piece of challah, and if you will, return your books to the table in the lobby.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. Shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'i kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
L'chaim. Or l'sara.
You've got the small size gloves. I'm not a small person. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom.